I am Keith Leatherman, and as principal of Wauseon High School, I would like to welcome all students, staff, Board of Education members, past and current Academic Hall of Fame inductees, along with their family and friends, to our 7th Distinguished Alumni and Legends of Education induction ceremony. This ceremony was scheduled to take place back in April of 2020. At that time, I don't think any of us realized what was ahead of us. Here we are 18 months later, and I feel very fortunate to be here today and finally have the opportunity to officially honor the latest Wauseon High School Academic Hall of Fame inductees. I would ask that you please rise at this time for the National Anthem being performed by the Wauseon High School a cappella choir, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Senior Justin Kutzley.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, choir. Before we recognize our honored guests today, I would like to explain what the Academic Hall of Fame entails. The Academic Hall of Fame consists of 3 different categories: the top 5% of each Wauseon High School graduating class, distinguished alumni from Wauseon High School, and legends of education from the Wauseon Exempted Village School District. In the past, I would define that as pre-pandemic, distinguished alumni and legends of education are inducted every other year. Our last induction was in April of 2018. However, during this time, we have continued each year to induct the top 5% from each graduating class. This is done each year at our graduation commencement ceremony. At our program today, I would like to recognize the previously inducted top 5% from the classes of 2018, 19, 20, and 21. From the class of 2018, top 5% graduates included Amanda Baker, Lucas Blanchong, Avery Jagir, Lane, Paige Moden, Owen Newlove, Jennifer Sanders, Allie Teft, Kyle Vernat, and Mac Warnke. From the class of 2019, we had Cody Albright, Danielle Bryan, Sam Frank, Justin Freestone, Kennedy Grimm, Christina Norman, Hannah Reeker, and Joey Shima. From the class of 2020, Kelsey Blanchon, JT Hutchinson, Brandon Michael, Mara Patterson, Garrett Pueller, Maggie Rolfsma, and Sydney Zirkle. And our latest top 5% inductees from the class of 2021 included Noah Becker, Tyson Britch, Micah Garrison, Hunter Knopfsinger, Emily Parker, and Chelsea Raby, and Lance Roop. Please give these students a round of applause. Class of 22, some of you will be added to that list come May. Look forward to that. Distinguished alumni are another category of our Academic Hall of Fame. Distinguished alumni are past graduates of Wauseon High School, which may include nominees who have achieved significant success in their chosen career field. and are individuals that provide outstanding role models for the students of the Wauseon Exempted Village School District. This is why we have chosen to hold this ceremony with the entire Wauseon High School student body in attendance. We want all of you to see the tremendous success that all of you could achieve one day as graduates of Wauseon High School. The third category of our Academic Hall of Fame is Legends of Education. Legends of Education are employees of the Wauseon Exempted Village School District that are not necessarily graduates of Wauseon schools, but have impacted students, parents, and staff in some significant way. The time they have devoted to the students of Wauseon schools is greatly appreciated. The following is the criteria for nomination. Nominees of the Wauseon Exempted Village Schools, living or deceased, are eligible for nomination. Nominees shall have demonstrated good citizenship and meritorious service. The record of the individual being nominated shall be so outstanding to the nominator that there is no question as to the qualifications necessary for their induction. As you will soon hear, today's inductees meet and exceed all of those qualifications and are most deserving of this honor. It has been my pleasure to learn more about our inductees through speaking with them and reading about all of their accomplishments. Each and every one of these individuals have made the Wauseon school system and the Wauseon community very proud. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the Academic Hall of Fame Committee. They have put a great deal of time into creating and maintaining the Academic Hall of Fame and for making today's event possible and keeping this great tradition going. Committee members are Mr. Larry Fruth, Mrs. Sandy Griggs, Mr. Mark Powers, Mr. Jim Spielis, Mrs. Dolores Spielis, Mr. Chris Spielis, and Mr. Tony Uribes. Please give them a round of applause. I would also like to thank Mrs. Carell Wagner for her help in organizing today's event and maintaining all of the Hall of Fame records. I would also like to thank Mr. Ryan Odell and Mrs. Michelle Leatherman for their assistance with our Academic Hall of Fame programs. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to Ms. Katie Miller for helping create the programs, designing our award plaques today, and our slide presentation for the program. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. One more round of applause for those who Our new inductees today will be presented by current Wauseon High School students. We will introduce and recognize our distinguished alumni first, followed by our Legends of Education. Here to present our first two distinguished alumni is Wauseon High School junior, Zayden Torres.
Our first distinguished alumni to be inducted today is Mr. James Boydston. Dr. James Boydston was a 1952 graduate of Wauseon High School. He passed away on February 21st, 2021, but will be remembered for his distinguished career as a veterinarian. Dr. Boydston completed his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine at Michigan State University in 1958. He then went into practice with his father, Dr. J. L. Boydston. In total, he practiced veterinary medicine for 18 years in Ohio, first with his father, and then as a founder of Countryside Animal Clinic in Wauseon. It was the largest animal practice in the state of Ohio. In 1977, he moved to Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where he owned and operated a mink ranch while continuing to be a practicing veterinarian on a part-time basis. In addition to practicing veterinary medicine, he also served as the Fulton County Fair veterinarian for 18 years. He was the first veterinarian for the Upper Peninsula Zoo dog sled race, which he did for 11 years. Additionally, Dr. Boydston served as race veterinarian for horse endurance and competitive races in the UP. His volunteerism included the Michigan State University Veterinarian Advisory Board, 4-H leadership, and the Pinecrest Board. In 1996, Dr. Boydston was instrumental in bringing the Miracle of Life exhibit to the Michigan Upper Peninsula State Fair. Under his leadership, he brought together farmers, fair representatives, sponsors, and MSU veterinary school students to plan for a live birth experience. He then acted as lead veterinarian during the fair and did so for 15 years. Dr. Boydston was active in other organizations as well. He was the 1966 chairman for the Wauseon Homecoming Committee and had a lifetime membership in the Lions Club and Elks Club, serving as president and other leadership positions in the Lions Club. He was the first member of the First Christian Church, disciple of Christ in Wauseon, and the Memorial Methodist Church in Gladstone. In recognition of his volunteerism and leadership in the field of veterinary medicine, Dr. Boydston was the recipient of various awards. In 2000, the Michigan Veterinarian Association named him Volunteer of the Year. He was also awarded the Michigan Veterinary Medical Association Merit Award for Leadership. Lastly, Dr. Boydston was recognized as honorary chapter farmer for vocational FFA. Dr. Boydston married Lois Murray in 1955, and she survives him. They have 3 daughters, Linda Fry, Jody Johnson, and Laura LaMarche. They have 6 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren. In retirement, Dr. Boydston and his wife love to travel to various locations and meet new people. Congratulations, Dr. James Boydston. Accepting this honor today on behalf of Dr. Boydston is his granddaughter Cassandra and his grandson Christopher. Our next distinguished alumni is Michael Laymaster. Michael Laymaster was a 1958 graduate of Wauseon High School. After high school, he attended the Ohio State University, and in 1963 earned a Bachelor's of Science in Education with a focus on history and government. In 1966, Dr. Laymaster earned a master's degree in guidance and counseling. During this period, he was a teacher at Crestline High School and subsequently a counselor at Mifflin High School in Columbus, Ohio. In 1969, Michael began his career in higher education. His first position was a counselor and admissions officer at Columbus State Community College. 3 years later, he became the Division Director of Health Technologies at the same institution and held that position for 6 years. In 1978, Dr. Laymaster began his tenure as Vice President for Student Services at Columbus State Community College, a position he held until his retirement in 1995. During this time, he earned his PhD in higher education from the Ohio State University in 1989. His dissertation was a study of 2-year college academic advising programs. Mr. Laymaster was also active in several organizations throughout his career. He served as chairman, vice chairman, and secretary of Ohio ACT Committee. He was also chairman of the Ohio Council on Student Development from 1980 to 1981. Michael was a trustee and second vice president of the Board of Trustees for the Columbus Metropolitan Area Community Action Organization. Additionally, he was a trustee for Health Careers of Ohio and Central Ohio Personnel and Guidance Association, as well as a member of the Ohio Board of Regents Subcommittee on Respiratory Therapy. Michael was also a member of the Ohio Board of Regents Task Force on Financial Assistance. After 30 plus years career in education and higher education, Michael was recognized for his efforts. In 1995, he received the Ohio State University College of Education Alumni Society Career Achievement Award. Under his leadership, student enrollment at Columbus State increased 200% from 1978 to 1994. Dr. Laymaster was also a strong proponent of increasing access to higher education for disadvantaged students, and Columbus State attracted the highest percentage of minority students of any college or university in Central Ohio. He was also instrumental in extending the full range of student support services to non-traditional school students. In 1996, Dr. Laymaster also earned the Columbus State Community College Board of Trustees Emeritus status. Having attended Wauseon schools from kindergarten throughout graduation, Michael had fond memories. He was king of the J-Hop, president of the student council, and editor of the yearbook. Michael said he experienced many great teachers and enjoyed playing clarinet, and Frank Kunkel's band. He further noted that his teachers and classes prepared him well for college. Dr. Laymaster was married to his wife Marilyn for over 50 years. When she passed away in 2019, together they had a daughter Jennifer and son Michael. He passed away on April 15, 2021, leaving family, friends, and colleagues to cherish his memory. Congratulations to Dr. Michael Laymaster. Accepting this honor today on behalf of Dr. Laymaster is his son Michael.
Presenting our next two distinguished alumni is senior Jordan King.
Our next distinguished alumni is Mr. Jay Schweibach. Dr. Jay Schweibach is a 1972 graduate of Wauseon High School. He attended Goshen College for 4 years, followed by medical school at The Ohio State University and a 3-year residency in family medicine at Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. During his undergraduate career as an elective in medical school, he spent 3 months in Haiti working at Hospital Laymaster at Baptist Mission Hospital. After his residency, he returned to Haiti for 1 year to work as a volunteer, splitting his time between 2 hospitals. The facilities provided much-needed medical care for impoverished people in one of the poorest countries in the world. In 1991, after spending a year in Costa Rica as the Goshen College facility representative to coordinate the study service trimester program there for college students, Dr. Schweibach moved to Tucson, Arizona with his wife and daughter. He wanted to live in a more culturally diverse area with Hispanic influence, as his wife is fluent in Spanish. He began work at El Rio Health Center, a federally qualified community health career center, serving primarily lower income individuals and families. He then became involved with teaching both medical students and family medicine residents as part of their medical training. He was named as the clinical assistant professor of family and community medicine in Arizona Health Science Center. Dr. Schweibach and his family moved back to Goshen, Indiana in 2001, so his wife could finish her seminary degree. They stayed there until 2012. He worked as a family physician during that time, part of which was an office that was unique in the area because it had a sliding free scale of lower income individuals. In 2012, he felt a call to move back to Tucson, where he again joined El Rio Community Healthcare Center. Continuing his involvement in the mission of El Rio, Dr. Schweibach is currently winding down on 20 years of work as a family physician at El Rio Community Health Center. Dr. Schweibach has been recognized several times for his career achievements. He received several letters of commendation while his medical school at The Ohio State University. He received the degree of Fellow through American Academy of Family Physicians in 1986. From 1996 to 1999, Dr. Schweibach was recognized for participation as an active teacher in family practice from the American Academy of Family Physicians. He also received recognition from the University of Arizona Department of Family and Community Medicine for contributions in teaching in the pre-doctoral program. Dr. Schweibach recalls fond memories while attending Wauseon schools. He notes that the nurturing he received at Wauseon High School in academics and sports was a positive influence in his life. Academic mentors in his life include Mr. James Spees and Mr. Kurt Cooley, both former science teachers at Wauseon High School. Along with that, he acknowledges former coaches Mr. Richard Darcy and Mr. Larry Fruth. Dr. Schweibach currently resides in Tucson, Arizona with his wife Tina. They have 3 adult children, Laura, who is working in Seattle for Washington Conservation Crops, Mandy, who is living and working in Tucson as an artist and advertising research assistant, and Thomas, who is a senior at Goshen College, majoring in biochemistry. Congratulations, Dr. Jay Schweibach. At this time, Dr. Jay Schweibach would like to share a few comments with all of us.
Hello
it's a real pleasure for me to come back to visit Wauseon High School. I get very nostalgic every time I come back to visit Wauseon, I think because of all the wonderful memories I've had growing up here. I truly hope that you're enjoying all your high school years as I did. And a large part of my experience was learning to know and appreciating the teachers that I had, and many of whom became academic role models and mentors for me. I just want to highlight a few of them. Mr. Richard Darcy taught me government and was my football defensive back coach, and I often would stop in and visit with him on my summer trips when I was able to come back to Wauseon, and I stayed in touch with him in that way. I also wish Mr. Kirk Cooley could be here. I was saddened to hear recently that he passed away a few months ago. A wonderful man, wonderful teacher. I regret not staying in touch more closely with him, but I am grateful that 3 years ago in the summer of 2018, I had the opportunity to have lunch with he and his wife along with my son Thomas. We had taken a road trip, Thomas and I, from Tucson to northern Indiana where he attended college. And it was during that time that we made a side trip to Wauseon because I wanted to show Thomas around the town where I grew up, because I'm proud of Wauseon and my experiences here. So that road trip was particularly special for me because it was with my son, but also because of a physics research paper that I did for Mr. Jim Spielis, my physics teacher, who is here with us today. And a couple of months ago, I was going through some high school memorabilia, and I ran into this paper that I had saved. I had forgotten I saved it. And I brought it along just to show him. It's called Uses of Solar Energy. It has my name, a physics research paper prepared for Mr. Spielis, Wauseon High School, December 18th, 1970. And how this relates to that road trip is that we did this road trip 3 years ago in an all-electric car that when we're in Tucson, we charge using the solar panels on our house. So even though it only took 48 years, in some sense it seemed like it came full circle for me. That same summer then, although I had not seen Mr. Spielis for quite some time, I and my son pulled into his drive hoping to find him home. Unfortunately he wasn't, but fortunately he showed up a few minutes later, drove in with his wife, having been out grocery shopping as I recall, and he rolled down his window and looked out at me and just said, "Jay Schweibach." And my son later told me that he was very impressed that Mr. Spielis would recognize me after quite a few years. My son went to a very large high school in Tucson, and I just explained, well, Wauseon's a smaller school, and these are the kind of teachers that I had. And so we went into his house, he and his wife and my son and I, and had a good conversation for an hour, and it was a wonderful memory for me. So I just want to encourage you and hope that you get to know your teachers, appreciate the good work they do for you, and if it feels right, consider staying in touch with some of them. It's been a real blessing for me, and I wish that for all of you.
Our final distinguished alumni today is Mrs. Beth Freese. Beth Freese is a 1978 Wauseon High School graduate. After graduation, she continued her education at Bowling Green State University and earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Early Childhood and Elementary Education. In 1995, Beth earned a master's degree in Special Education from the University of Toledo. She has worked in the field of developmental disabilities for over 31 years. Beth has spent the majority of her professional career at the Fulton County Board of Developmental Disabilities. She began her career there in 1988 as an early interventional specialist. In 1993, she was promoted to Early Childhood Coordinator, where in addition to working with children and parents, she had the responsibility of coordinating with local media and social organizations to provide support services. She also supervised the staff of specialists. Transitioning to Children Service Director in 1998, she took an additional leadership duties as well as serving as the Welcome Home Project Director and the Help Me Grow Project Director. In 2007, after continuing her education to earn a superintendent's license, she was appointed as the superintendent of the Fulton County Board of Developmental Disabilities. As superintendent, she oversees the operations of the entire organization. and serves the needs of all clients, including children and adults. Beth notes that becoming the superintendent has allowed me to support individuals with disabilities and their families across the lifespan. Because I began my time at the board of DD with an early interventional child and their families, I am now lucky to be able to support those same children and their families as they enter adulthood. Beth has had a distinguished career serving the community in many capacities. She has served on the Hands of Grace Board and the Adams Board. She is currently a board member of the Northwest Ohio Waiver Administration Council of Government and has served as chairperson for 8 of the last 9 years. Beth is also a member of the Fulton County Partners of Health Committee and serves on the Fulton County Community Corrections Board. In 2014, she began on the Ohio ARC Board of Trustees, representing the 88 boards of developmental disabilities. Because of her many years in leadership, the past 3, she has been chosen to mentor 2 new superintendents, as well as the new executive director of the NOWAC agency. As Beth reflected on her memories at Wauseon High School, she recalls living next to Burr Road Middle School and being a part of the various programs and activities, including band and vocal music, which gave her a lifelong appreciation for music. She participated in theater, track, Y teams, and the French Club. When the natatorium opened at the high school, she taught swimming lessons, and she was also a librarian in high school, assisting Miss Sherman. As a senior at WHS, she took anatomy and physiology from Mr. Cooley. He arranged for Beth and another student to spend a weekend at Sunshine Children's Home assisting with children with disabilities. She credits Mr. Cooley in that experience as instrumental in leading her to a rewarding career. Beth also adds that she feels very fortunate to educate the community about those with developmental disabilities and stated, through mentorship of current staff, as well as the mentoring of new leaders in the DD field, I work hard to foster the love of learning that I received through my education in Wauseon schools. Beth currently lives in Wauseon with her husband of 40 years, Joe Fries. They have 2 children, Sean and Kaylee, who are both Wauseon graduates as well. Sean lives in Bowling Green, while Kaylee lives in Cleveland with her children, Andrew and Lizzie. Congratulations, Mrs. Beth Fries.
Now to introduce our Legends of Education is Junior Ezra Dixon.
Our first Legend of Education to be honored today is Mr. Paul Meeker. Mr. Paul Meeker was the director of a high school and middle school choral music from 1965 to 1978. Paul then taught language arts at Burr Road Middle School from 1978 to 1993. He was instrumental in building the choral program at the high school and middle school over the course of his 13 years as a director. Paul formed multiple choral groups and strengthened the overall enrollment. Additionally, Paul is credited with helping to restructure the middle school language arts program through the use of technology, speech, specialized reading. Mr. Paul Meeker has frequently been cited by Wauseon's Academic Hall of Fame, distinguished alumni, inductees as having been an excellent teacher and strong influence during their formative years. Paul graduated from Lyons High School in 1959. He then pursued his Bachelor's of Arts degree at Adrian College, graduating in 1963. He attended Bowling Green State University and the University of Toledo for his postgraduate work. Paul stated, "My years at Wauseon were busy but rewarding due to the help of administration, staff, parents, and especially the students, who are willing to work and try new things." Paul was recognized during his successful career as a Martha Holden Jennings Scholar. He was also selected to be an OMEA judge for solo and ensemble contests and large group competitions at both the district and state levels. When Paul came to Wauseon in 1965, there was a mixed chorus and a 9th and 10th grade girls chorus. At Burr Road, there was a 7th and 8th grade choir and a general music class. Paul worked to expand the program by adding a high school boys choir. In 1967, the combined girls chorus was formed. The mixed chorus, boys choir, and combined girls chorus were entered in the district and state competitions. In 1969, the programs were successful in achieving all ones in the district and state competitions. This resulted in the recording of a record album. In 1970, the Wauseon High School Chorale was formed with 17 singers to perform at club events and special meetings. This highly successful group also competed in district and state solo and ensemble competitions. In 1971, the chorale recorded a record album after performing at Cedar Point for a state convention. The choral program had also performed in a number of successful high school musicals. In addition to directing the choirs, Paul worked with Mr. George to create a music theory class and a history and literature of music class at the high school. These courses could be taken for academic credit. Furthermore, the middle school choir was separated into 2 choirs as a result of the increased enrollment. In 1978, Paul decided to teach 7th grade English, 8th grade speech, and 7th grade computers at Burr Road Middle School. He stated that this was an enjoyable time developing successful projects in the English classes. The speech classes performed plays for the student body that included the construction of simple scenery, the use of props, and even the application of makeup. A performance of A Charlie Brown Christmas was one of the highlights of Falls Middle School's tenures, helping to spark an interest in the high school drama program. His speech classes also gave persuasive speeches that helped convince the staff to add trophy cases to the Burr Road Middle School lobby. Paul has many great memories of his time at Wauseon schools. A few of his favorite experiences include the high school faculty Christmas caroling parties, taking the chorale to sing in the lobby of the Hearst Company, and following 4 chartered buses filled with Wauseon band and choral students headed for state competition in Columbus. Bob will remember the excitement of the 8th grade speech students after learning that the district was going to buy trophy cases, and also the excitement of the 7th grade doing their Lincoln projects. Finally, recording the record albums with his choral students has given him lasting memories of their hard work. Paul and his wife, Peg, have been married for 57 years. They have been blessed with 3 children, Don, Jenny, Chris, and their spouses. Paul and Peg also have 10 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. Paul continues to play piano and organ at First Church of God. He volunteers his time in many capacities. He also directs the Fulton County Senior Center Choir. Paul stated, at this time, I have 5 singers who are over 90 and 1 couple who have been married for over 70 years. Sing on. Congrats, Mr. Paul Meeker. Our next legend of education is Mr. John Precht. Mr. John Precht was a social studies educator at Wauseon High School from 1973 to 2012. His entire professional career, spanning 39 years, was spent teaching American history to thousands of students. In addition to his American history classes, John also taught courses in American government, geography, consumer economics, current events, and comparative government during his successful tenure at WHS. John was an incredible, dedicated teacher who had a clear passion for his subject matter. He found ways to show his students that history was all around them. It is not very difficult to see how important a well-rounded social studies education is in today's society. John dedicated his entire career to providing the essential instructions to his students. Not only did John spend all of his years as an educator at Wauseon High School, but he was also a proud graduate. Having attended WHS from 1964 to 1968, John can only recall fond memories of his time as a student. I had a very enjoyable and successful 4 years at WHS as a student and an athlete. The teachers and coaches were great role models and helped me decide on a career in education. Following his high school career, John attended Ohio State University from 1968 to 1973. He graduated from Ohio State with a Bachelor's of Art in History in 1972 and with a Bachelor's of Science in Education in 1973. While at OSU, John was recognized for his scholarly achievements in history through his induction into the Academic Honor Society, Phi Alpha Theta. In addition to his bachelor's degree, John earned a master's in education from the University of Toledo in 1990. While John's high level of education certainly contributed to his success in the classroom, it was his creativity and dedication that truly brought his subject matter to life. In addition to the traditional classroom study, John took students to the Fulton County Courthouse when he taught government. He frequently registered students to vote in his classes, describing this process as the basic right of a democratic society. John has great memories of his oral history projects where he has his students interview an older person about a particular period in American history. This has resulted in very enlightening and memorable experiences for all involved. John's Something Old activity required students to bring in a historical artifact that was no longer in common use. A collection of these artifacts still remained in his classroom for many years. In fact, some of these artifacts remain on display to this day, under the current care of WHS history teacher, Mr. Joe Allen. In addition to his classroom duties, John was a successful football and track coach. John spent 30 years on the WHS football staff as an assistant coach, winning 7 NWOAL championships. John also coached girls track at the junior high and high school levels for 19 years. He was the head coach for Wauseon High School's first 2 NWOAL championships in girls in track and field. John was recognized by the Ohio High School Coach Association for 30 years of service to the student athletes at WHS. John clearly made a difference in the life of students, but he also made a lasting impression upon many of the people whom he worked. Current Wauseon Assistant Principal Ryan Odell is one of those individuals. He stated, "Mr. Pretch is undoubtedly the greatest mentor I had when I was a young teacher. He provided so many words of wisdom and encouragement when I was trying to find my way in this profession. I admire him immensely, and I miss his presence in our building on a regular day basis. I always look forward to talking to him. He's an amazing role model and friend." John has been married to his wife, Laura, for 48 years. They have 2 sons, Ryan and Kyle, and daughter-in-law, Angela and Sarah. Having always been a dedicated family man, John continues to remain highly involved in their lives with his grandsons, William, Augie, Max, and Andy. Congratulations, Mr. John Pretch.
As you can see, as I stated, these 6 individuals that we inducted here today far and exceed the qualifications for the Academic Hall of Fame. Please give them one more round of applause. At this time, the band would form here in the front, and I would like to also introduce Wauseon's Superintendent, Mr. Troy Armstrong, for our closing remarks today.
First, I want to thank our student participants, and I appreciate their demonstration of Wauseon pride and the Wauseon way. Thank you, students. To the families of our current and past inductees, I thank you for your support of Wauseon schools. Next, I would like to thank our inductees for their individual contributions to Wauseon and their local communities. Mr. Meeker and Mr. Breck were both teachers of mine during my K-12 Wauseon experience. I wish you all well, and again, thank you for your participation today and contributions to Wauseon and the world as a whole. Thank you.
Please stand. I would like to thank everyone for attending today. I invite our inductees and former inductees and guests to the cafeteria for refreshments. Students, if you are making the trip to Triway tonight, please travel safely. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you on Monday.